record. And we are
Thank you.
recording.
Okay, so this is an evening meeting of the Brookline Planning Board, and we're going to be looking at several ZBA cases. And are we accepting any comments from folks that are not on the agenda? I think we are. If anyone has a comment for the planning board that they'd like to present, please raise your hand, and Becca will call upon you.
I would just like to mention that I just learned maybe today or yesterday that the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee at its meeting on this coming Monday has asked for presentations of the housing production plan, our more recent housing production plan, and of the Affordable Housing Overlay District study report, both of which were under the auspices of the Housing Advisory Board. So if anybody's interested, Linda, you may know about this already since you're on the CP steering committee.
Would you send the HAB things to members of the planning board on the overlay district? And
yes, I can do that.
That would be great, because I would certainly like to read it.
So one of our next moves is to present this to the planning board and to EDAB, but to our surprise, it's been scheduled for presentation at the Comp Plan Steering Committee for Monday. So
it's very rich. It's really complete. It's very, very impressive.
What are you talking about?
The housing production plan document.
Yeah, well, that's already a year or two old, but if you haven't yet looked at the Affordable Housing Overlay District report and recommendations, that's worth taking a look at as well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my not on the agenda comment.
Well, I think that would be, I think it'd be worthwhile for us to have more than one discussion about that. I know sometimes we look at these reports, much like the open space report, it's a kind of one and done. And since housing, I think, is such an important issue in town and affects, almost everything we do on the planning board, I think we should really spend some time on it. That would be what do other members of the board think about spending more than one, like talk about it for a half an hour, 45 minutes on one meeting and think about it more and then come back and continue the conversation?
Well, I think we definitely should schedule at least one meeting with the planning board to discuss the Affordable Housing Overlay District. The housing production plan, that was a year ago.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm talking about the overlay district. I think that would be, in my mind, very important. All right, so let's get started. The first case.
I saw Mr. Christopher Arend has his hand up. Do you have any comment not on the agenda you'd like to present to the board? We cannot hear you.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes.
Hi.
For the record, Mr., could you name and address, please?
Sure. My name is Chris Arndt, and I'm the owner of 19 St. Mary's Court.
I see. Okay, great.
And I was just here to please comment on the 1020 Beacon Street proposal.
All right.
Yes, that's an item on the agenda. And after the board discusses the case, it will open the floor for public comments. And at that moment, please raise your hand and you'll be called to make your comments or questions.
Thank you.
Great. All right, so let's get started. First case.
Yes, before we get started, Blair, the applicant for 8 Thayer Place, which is also the representative for 1024 Beacon, has asked if, since that's a minor case, and I think the architect has a conflict, if they can present the case first.
That's fine. If there's no objections, let's get that going.
All right, with no objection, I'll get started with the first case, which is 8 Thayer Place. 8 Thayer Place, this is a 2.5-story single-family home located in Brookline Village. It's located south of Washington Street, right between Cypress and Thayer Street. This is a T5 district, and the applicant is proposing, among some interior renovations, mainly to construct a dormer to create additional living space. That's the only alteration that that's been proposed. And this trigger rear yard setback, which is a pre-existing conformity due to the size of a very small lot. So representing the applicant is Attorney Bob Allen, and I'll just hand over right to him.
Thanks, Becca. Mr. Chair, members of the board, for the record, Robert Allen, 300 Washington Street in Brookline Village. Thank you for taking this case out of order. I'm here with, not sure if Brian and Catherine Gardner are here or whether they had a conflict tonight, but Nick Landry is the architect and he is present. As Becca said, 8 Thayer Place is kind of right behind the public safety building, right? If you drive down there, you end up in the parking lot of the courthouse or the police station there. And basically, they're adding a dormer to an existing house. It doesn't comply. You know, all those little houses that are right behind the police station there. It doesn't comply with the rear yard setback. The dormer will also not comply with the rear yard setback, but it won't increase any non-conforming condition. This is one of those cases that is very clear. The case law allows it to be done administratively by the building commissioner. He could allow it as of right under 48 Section 6. However, Dan Bennett chooses not to do that, so we have to go through this process and add a lot of time and expense to a client for doing something that's so small and minor that should be done so quickly. But with that, I'll turn it over to Nick, and he can show you this in about 5 minutes. Go ahead, Nick.
Thank you very much. Nick Landry from DRT, the architects for the project. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So 8 Thayer Place, as Bobby mentioned, where there's a small dormer addition proposed in the rear. There was a few violations that we just went through. Here we have an existing site plan. This is Thayer Place here, and here's the property. There's an existing curb cut with a driveway on the left-hand side of the property. We're proposing a dormer on the rear portion of the property right here. It's about just over 19.5 feet from the property line on the rear yard setback. That dormer addition, currently there's an unfinished attic space. So these plans here, this is the existing basement, first floor here, Thayer Street down here at the bottom, second floor and third floor. We're going to be connecting to that unfinished attic space and providing a dormer here so that we can create a bathroom off the primary here. You can see that down below right here. So we'll have that small dormer addition off the side of the house that you won't be able to see from the street. It's kind of hidden because it tucks in here with the L. So these are the existing elevations along the top. So the front of the house, the front elevation won't change from the street because again, that dormer is kind of tucked in behind the L there. The side addition, the only changes here is we're putting a couple skylights in. And then the rear yard, you can see this is the existing rear, and then there's that dormer that we're proposing there, create that additional space. And again, from the side view, you can see that dormer that's going to create that space for the primary bath. So the kind of a 3D view looking at the house from the bird's eye view. You can see that proposed dormer tucked in right over here, and over here on the rear view. And this is a view from the street. So you can see at this angle, you can kind of see it poking out, but from the front view, you won't be able to see anything. That's the end of the presentation. I can circle back to if there's any questions.
No, so basically we have a family that wants to stay in Brookline and their kids are growing up and they're tired of sharing a bathroom. So it's a pretty modest addition, and unfortunately we have to go through a long process to get it.
Nice drawings.
Hey,
There it
Blair, you're muted.
I
am.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mark, I just asked whether there were any concerns or questions from the board. Thanks, Mark.
I would actually I think Mr. Allen is right that this could have been approved administratively. I know in the past we've seen quite a number of projects where all that was being added was a dormer, and because it was within a setback, it came here. This is one of the smaller versions of that I've seen, but I do remember when we were talking about the T5 zoning that one member of the advisory committee thought it was outrageous that we were allowing dormers in third floor roofs because of the invasion of privacy of neighbors. Fortunately, you're at the planning board and not at the advisory committee for this approval. So I think this is just fine.
I'd like to make a motion to approve it. It's a nice.
Yeah, let's make a
presentation and
motion.
nice set of
Okay,
drawings.
I
can-
think Linda
You
had
gotta
a
check for
comment.
neighborhood.
we
No,
have
I didn't
to
have a-
ask,
no.
we have to ask if there's any public comments, and then Becca, if you could put up the, any public comments? Becca, can you put up the, conditions, please? So Andrea made a motion.
Second,
Okay, Stephen seconds it. So here, this is, the conditions would be prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall electronically submit final floor plans and elevations stamped and signed by a registered architect, and a final site plan stamped and signed by a registered engineer or land surveyor to the Director for Regulatory Planning for review and approval. Secondly, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall electronically submit to the building commissioner for review and approval, A, the site plan, floor plans, and elevations displaying the approval stamp of the Director for Regulatory Planning, and B, evidence that the Board of Appeals decision has been obtained from the town clerk's office by the applicant or their representative and recorded at the Registry of Deeds. All in favor, Andrea,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Stephen,
aye.
Linda,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So,
I'm here
good luck.
too. Doing aye.
Oh,
I Matt.
sorry, Matt. And yourself?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so it's unanimous, and
Thank
good
you
luck
all.
with this. And we'll take the next case then.
Thank you very much.
Next case is 1020 and 1022 to 1024 Beacon Street. So those are two lots along Beacon Street, which is considered a National Register District. And the Preservation Commission has found those buildings not historically or architecturally significant. So those are currently used as retail stores located in the L1.0 district, and the applicant is proposing to merge these two lots and construct an addition to add 7 residential units. 6 of them will be located above and 1 on the ground floor. Part of the retail existing space on the ground floor will also be maintained. So relief here is needed for having dwellings in business and industrial districts, also design review because this is located fronting Beacon Street and because it's a structure that will have 4 or more units, and also side yard setbacks because this is those buildings are attached on both sides and therefore don't comply with required setbacks. So this project will also be required to make a payment for the affordable housing requirements in Brookline. And I'll just hand it over to the applicant, to Bob Allen and the architects to present the proposal. And just maybe note that we received 1 letter in support of this.
Great.
Attorney Allen?
Thanks, Becca. Mr. Chair, members of the board, again for the record, Robert Allen, 300 Washington Street in Brookline Village. I'm here representing the owner of the property, Sean Galvin. I'm not sure if he's here or Dean might be here representing him. We also have the architect, Michael Scanlon, on the line here. I'm actually excited about this project. This is an area, I think Steve Hiking can back me up on this. This is an area, Lower Beacon, where the town has looked at for as long as I can remember for trying to encourage some additional development, not just one story, but try to encourage some additional development, much like we've done on Harvard Street to encourage some housing there. But it's never really been able to get upzoned in any way. And as a result of not being able to get upzoned, it's very difficult to just kind of build up when you're only getting 1 floor or a little bit more than a floor. But my client, Sean, he's owned this property for over 40 years. He actually used to run the liquor store on the first floor. And he's finally found a way that, you know, we're doing it. There's no variances. We don't need any additional FAR. The relief arguably is pretty minimal. Side yard setback because they're connected, but it's already connected, so it's kind of a pre-existing condition. Again, located in an L local business 1 district, and we're basically going to merge the 1020 lot with the 1022 to 1024 lot to add 7 residential units while mostly maintaining the existing retail space on the ground floor. The surrounding neighborhood, as you know, it's a lot of mixed use, particularly across the street. Otherwise, it's a lot of one story there. And then, of course, kind of right next to it, you have this 1 4-story building that just kind of sticks up out of the blue there. You know, it's the plans. The one thing that was shocking to me, and I'm sure will be shocking to the board, the Preservation Commission found none of these buildings historically significant or architecturally significant, which shocked me for being on Beacon Street. But we still hired a architect who has a lot of history with preservation, historical architecture. And I think as you listen to Michael's presentation, you'll see that he gave a very thoughtful approach to looking at not only what's there now, but what's the history of the property, and what can he do to try to be consistent and be respectful of the history of the property. The owner also worked with the abutters. He has a good relationship with the abutters because, you know, anytime you're attaching to a building, you have to worry about the existing windows there. But he was able to work with the abutter and come to a project that works for both him and the abutter that doesn't block windows. So, you know, the owner had a lot. It's a tricky little development here to try to squeeze in some housing in an area where you don't have a lot of density, in an area that you have to be careful of the property next to you. But you'll see Michael did a really good job, and the owner was really flexible about it. And of course, we get a payment to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund on top of the 7 units. So I think it's a real win-win. And I can turn it over to Michael unless there's any questions.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
In terms of the FAR, you said the FAR is 1.
Yeah.
And are you allowed in an L district to have any bonus? Because I know in other residential zones you can get 125, 130% of your FAR.
We don't have
certain
the lot
conditions.
size. We don't have the lot size to get any PBIs.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really pretty much unattainable to get PBIs unless you're able to put 2 large lots together. Really tough.
I see.
Michael, if you could just introduce yourself and take over the screen. Michael Scanlon.
Okie doke. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, and you will forgive me. I'm kind of an old dog to learn these.
Would you like to have Becca share the plans and you can direct her?
We did a trial run on this.
There you go. We can see it
It's
now.
gonna be fine.
No, the truth of the matter is that I reviewed it again today and found a few spelling errors. So I'd rather share mine. I think I'm clicking the right thing now. All right. So can you see that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is what we are going to do, which means I'm at the end of my, I'm not at, please excuse.
Michael, I have Kelsey on here too, who can pull it up, your plan.
Well, no, I just want to get the right,
If it makes you feel any better, Michael, I'm in that generation and I've tried to share my screen for the first time at a meeting yesterday and couldn't do it.
all right. So is it sharing?
Zoom
Am I
meeting.
still sharing?
No.
No.
So there must be another button. Let me. Okay. How are we doing now?
Better.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Okay. So here we are on the sidewalk of Beacon Street, in front of the building. And you can see that what we are concerned with is the building that contains, or did contain until very recently, the wine press, and beyond it, the Japanese bakery. In the foreground, you can see the corner of the small Bank of America building, which is technically numbered 1024A, but is not part of our parcel, although there's a story about it, which I will get into later. And beyond the Japanese bakery is the one remaining four-story townhouse of our group, of the group that used to exist there. And my name is Mike Scanlon, and I'm presenting this I made this and I'm presenting it on the part of our team. And this is our team. As Bob said, 1024 Realty Trust has owned the property for a long time. I've done the design work. Dean Yokomides, who I believe is on the call, will be our contractor. Phil Kritikos is also on the call. He's our CAD genius, and he will be serving as architect of record. And we have an engineer, a structural engineer, and a guy watching over our energy and doing our HERS rating on the team. Here is an aerial view of the property. You can see 1024, 1020. On Google, they mark the building in between as 1022A in the various documents. Through the history, there is a listing of a 1020A, and so we are technically 1020, 1020A, 1022, 1022A, and 1024. So this isolates our parcel from the rest of the aerial view, and it calls out the existing Muse buildings on St. Mary's Court, which I have developed a very passionate affection for. St. Mary's Court itself, the combined lots, the one brownstone next door that still exists, number 1018, and on the west side, 1024A and 1026, which is the H Mart. And I've also marked the St. Mary's Tea Stop, which is directly across the street from us. And here is a historic map that shows the condition when 1020 existed as the last townhouse in the row from St. Mary's Street. And beside it, what is now 1022 and 1024 was vacant, except for a small outbuilding. And one aspect of this status that interests me is that at that time, those lovely buildings on St. Mary's Court were visible from Beacon Street and contributed to Beacon Street. I ask your indulgence. I'm an architectural historian, and I'm just in love with those buildings. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Now, here we have the historic record. These are the buildings. The building that exists, 1018, is the one that has the triangular awning over its door and the angular bay. It's actually a hexangular bay. And then to the left of that, with an arched opening over the door, is 1020. Not clear from this photograph, but it had a rounded bay. And here, a few years later, we have the situation, we're looking from the other side. You can see 1020 very clearly with its rounded bay and its L out back. And a retail building has been built, which is the footprint of the retail space of the wine press. I'm sure some of you have been in the wine press. There is a retail space and various added warehouse spaces behind it. But the Ginter's grocery store occupies the space of the wine press retail establishment. So here we go. that's isolated there, so you can see very clearly the buildings, the Ls, the extra outbuildings. Here is the footprint of those houses imposed on the Google Street View. And here are the existing conditions. On the left-hand side, I'm showing you the flank wall of 1018. When 1020 was taken down to 1 story, there was remediation on the exterior wall, which had been a party wall, but was now an exterior wall, and windows were inserted in 1018. They become a major constraint in our design. On the right is the Beacon Street side from the other side with the Japanese bakery in the foreground, just beyond the angular bay of 1018 and the wine press. Now, at this point, I'll say that I agree in being shocked that the Historical Commission took a pass on this. My design was based on the premise that we would retain a good deal of this, and I still think it's the right thing to do, to tell you the truth, to be perfectly frank. Here is the wine press on the right, and the thing that intrigues me about it is the attention to the brick detailing and the little recesses framing the windows. Above the windows, where the signboard is, the wine press, there is a flat surface that seems to be a veneer over what I assume was the brickwork. We don't quite know what's going on there. It's probably in bad condition, and the wood is in very, very bad condition. On the right, you can see the join to 1020, and if you look closely, you'll see that immediately adjacent to the left side of the 1020 door, there's a seam in the brick. Poking around in the basement of this building reveals to me that this is actually the end of the end wall of 1020. And you can see on the extreme right, on the other side, that seam exists, and you can also see the seam between in the original party wall. So there's all of this stuff going on. It looks like they tore down the townhouse and they built a new building there, but that's not actually the case. The foundation exists, remnants of the original floor structure inside exist, and the Ginter's grocery store actually exists inside the wine press, although the facade was changed. On the back, however, it's not very nice. And on the left is the back of the 1020 section of the property. It is an old brick wall. I don't know if it's the original brick wall because there originally was an L. It's been much interfered with, but the brick is actually very nice old brick, very well set. The next picture to the right is the back of 1020 and the back of 1024. Back of 1020, still pretty nice, well-laid old brickwork. The back of 1024, which comes forward, is really, really poor cinder block construction. It's kind of shocking. It's not even square. The roof is different. It's very problematic. However, across the way, these are the buildings on St. Mary's Court, and they provide a totally different atmosphere. They're really very, very beautiful, and the challenge that I gave to myself as a designer is to come up with a scheme for our project that is appropriate to setting these buildings off. So here's a kind of complicated drawing in which I explain some of my design constraints. And my cursor doesn't seem to work when I've got this program up, but you can see the dotted lines, which are this section through the main part of our proposed construction. But the areas that are filled with gray that I've marked with new construction are where our project tapers down to fit against the wall of 1018 and fit between the window spaces. So there's a considerable attempt made to come up to the wall of 1018 without interfering at all with the existing windows there. The other
no windows. You're not in.
We're not covering any windows, no.
I see. Okay.
I know it was a struggle, but I don't know quite what I know in Boston those windows would be illegal. I don't know what the situation with Brookline is, but more important than that legal question was my client's desire not to discomfort Richard Glantz, the neighbor, the owner of the building next door. So we spent a lot of time figuring out how to make that work. The other thing that was determinant for me was I took the angle of the sun at the winter solstice and drew a line from the base of the walls of those buildings on St. Mary's Court. It's a 24.2 degree angle. And I used that as a sort of containing line for the structure in order to avoid any shadowing on the buildings of St. Mary's Court. And then there's the angle of view from Beacon Street, which is the blue triangle on the right-hand side of my little sketch drawing there. With the building as it's designed now, the new second-story addition, from the sidewalk on Beacon Street, only the eave will be visible, and I'll show this in a rendering coming up. If you're across the street, you will see more of the upper part of the building. So here are two renderings. On the right is the cone of vision that was represented on that drawing, showing you, if you are on the sidewalk on Beacon Street, you see just the tops of the second-story windows and the eave. On the right is what you would see if you were on the opposite side of the street. As you move away, you see more of the upper story, and you start to see the surface of the roof.
In terms of the front, Mr. Scanlon, why are you that concerned about the second floor being viewable from Beacon Street?
So this is my reason, speaking as a designer and speaking as someone who's very, very sensitive to the sort of wall of the street. My preference, in fact, the first study I did for this property 3 years ago now, called for making a much taller building that was level with 1018 and 1038. When we had the property surveyed, I actually had 1018 and 1038 also surveyed for heights. I think that if anyone at the town asked me my opinion about planning on this neighborhood, I would say either you return to the height of the original townhouses, or you maintain the height of the existing retail stores. I just didn't feel that I wanted to add yet another building height, another cornice height along the street. So by pushing the second story back, we accomplished two things, and I like it when I can accomplish more than one thing with a gesture. We're clear of the windows at 1018, and we also maintain the sense that the cornice height along Beacon Street hasn't changed dramatically. The building won't impose itself on Beacon Street. And those are the kinds of things that I think about when I'm doing a design. And I did these renderings because when you look at the elevation of the building, now, when you draw an elevation like this, you are, hovering at the middle height of the building from some distance away, and you're seeing it all as though it were flat. So this represents the gestures of the design and the thinking of the design, but it doesn't really represent the street experience. This is what represents the street experience. So I have a great deal of respect for the existing wine press facade. So I have maintained in the area on the left of the facade the sense of it. It's the same brick, the same fenestration, the same little reveal surrounding the windows. We are creating an apartment entrance in the middle, and you'll see on the floor plan that the hallway space is taken out of the existing wine press retail space. And then on the left, I'm repeating the fenestration across the bakery. And we are committed to doing this project without disturbing the bakery any more than is absolutely necessary. I will say at this point that the project originated with a combination of the fact that the building is now, even the new parts of the building are 100 years old, and they need a lot of major attention. And the owner of the business at the wine press was asking to have his space reduced. And the owner of the bakery was asking to have public restrooms and wanted to be able to serve food in front, and he needed public restrooms to do that. So all of these things coming together is what convinced my client that it was time to make an investment in this property. So here's the front. What is going on here? I don't quite understand what's happening here.
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to move to the next slide. And right, I'm going to stop share and then come. Oh, wait. Are you seeing it still?
No.
No, you did stop sharing.
Okay. I wish I had a young person working for me that.
Like
right.
I said, Becca can do that for you, Mr. Scanlon, if you're feeling taxed here.
Yeah, I think
No,
I
I
just
got
don't
it.
have
There we-
this specific
there we go.
presentation.
All right. I don't know why I don't know why it's not.
That's okay. Let's just move on.
Let's move on.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. And here. Continue to share. I'm getting windows all over. There we go. Okay. So here's the side flank. We have a step back where the window is. That will become apparent when I show you the back. But I did not put any windows on what is the western wall, the party wall, because I think it would be unwise to assume that at some point, probably not too long from now, the owners of that property will also want to go up. I mean, we need housing. It makes economic sense to do it. So I don't want to put windows in that wall. It will create a problem for projects to move along. Here is the back. You can see on the right, that step back. That step back is over the egress from the apartments to the St. Mary's Court side. On the first floor, we're looking from St. Mary's Court across what is now the parking area. There's the entrance to our bicycle room and to an accessible apartment, and then the other apartments up on the second floor. Here are two massing studies I did, just dropping some rough drawings onto aerial views from Google Earth, once again emphasizing how the step backs work in front, and on the right, how the step backs work in the rear. This is our zoning and the zoning analysis, which is on our drawing package that was submitted. This slide, I point out that going back to the picture of from the early 1920s, when 1020 was still standing, that was 1020 at that point was residential. It was 4 full stories over an English basement. What happened subsequently was that the upper stories were taken down. A deeper basement was excavated, and the first floor was lowered to be level with the sidewalk. And the result of that was all of that residential space was lost. So if you talk about the part of the building that was removed, it's 3,170 square feet of residential space. If you include what was converted into retail, then you get a number of 5,308 square feet. So that's a lot. That was a loss of residential space. And not just there, that whole block suffered that loss. Here is the floor plan. You can see that the space that is now the wine press is slightly smaller. We've kept it to 2,500 square feet. We're providing new restrooms. We're removing its direct access to the basement. The basement is not a habitable space. Their little chute that they have going down to the basement is going away. In the rear, there's an apartment on ground level. It's completely accessible, a 1-bedroom apartment. We have our bike facility. I'm a very, very committed bicyclist. I haven't driven a car in 20 years, and so I'm very sensitive about this. We have wall hanging space for bicycles, floor space for electric bikes, which are heavy, and maintenance and washing facilities. And I'll talk about the parking out back on a subsequent slide. In the middle is the apartment entrance and the stairs up to the second floor from Beacon Street. We also have stairs up to the second floor from St. Mary Street. So all of the apartments, including the accessible apartments, have direct access both to a vehicle in the parking area off St. Mary's Court and to the T or whatever else on Beacon Street. Apartment floor plan, the 6 apartments on the second floor. Most of them are sort of studio lofts. My client is very fond of this concept. He uses it in some of his other apartments. It works well because we don't really have a way to provide windows for enclosed bedrooms. However, the apartment at the top of this screen is a 2-bedroom apartment. There is 1 bedroom on the main floor and another bedroom up on the loft floor, the mezzanine floor, as we're calling it. Very large terraces in front over the retail stores and smaller terraces over the back. Lots of egress. These are the mezzanines. There is each of the mezzanine has an internal egress to the first floor of the apartment, but also there is a hallway at that level with a common staircase down to the lower floor. Here,
Before you go on, in terms of the mezzanine level, what is the floor height, the ceiling, at the lowest point at the loft space? I mean, can someone stand there, or is it less than 7 feet?
no. It's 7'6".
I see. Okay, thank you.
I need the head clearance coming up the stairway is all to code.
Okay, I just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
That calculation that's why that very complicated sort of parameters drawing that I showed you a while ago was very important in that, because having proper head height over the tops of those staircases was an important factor in calculating the slope of that roof.
Yeah.
So we have parking, we have planting, we have fences. Latest news is we are probably going to have to provide a transformer. I don't have the final dimensions on that. So I took away one of the parking spaces and I put that big lavender rectangle there. That's kind of a placeholder for now. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 parking spaces for our 7 apartments. One of them, the one adjacent to the accessible apartment, does meet the requirements for an accessible parking space. And they all will have connections, outlets for vehicle chargers. So they're all EV ready. We are also including extra outlets in the bicycle room so people can charge their electric bikes in the bike room rather than having to bring stuff up to their apartment, and scooters too. This is the curbing and the lighting and so forth that we're looking at. This is City Bin. They're a company started by this woman who is dissatisfied with the choices for trash. These are very attractive and rodent-proof containers to hold all of the trash receptacles. And our bicycle equipment. And we're back to the rendering, and that is the end of my presentation. I thank you for your patience.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Scanlon. I'm going to guess we have some questions from the architects, at least on the board here. So who would like to go first?
Well, that's a good sign.
Well, I could make a comment, and Mark Zarilla may also remember this. First of all, I'm not at all shocked that the Preservation Commission did not consider these buildings historic. Mark Zarilla will remember that he and I were on a subcommittee, a joint subcommittee of the Planning Board and Preservation Commission just before COVID hit us, that was looking at design guidelines for Beacon Street. And it was clear, and the Preservation Commission members were, I think, the chair and co-chair at the time. And it was clear then that they did not see a need to retain these one-story commercial structures when there was demand for more mixed-use development in areas like Beacon Street. That subcommittee never really got going because COVID hit and then all meetings stopped. And so that was kind of an unfinished effort. But we were already looking at one of the things that we saw clearly that was needed was, as Mr. Scanlon mentioned, some upzoning of this area. So the only other thing I want to say is I think this is a very thoughtful presentation. I loved all the historical background to this, and it's a very thoughtful design within the parameters that we currently allow. And Mr. Allen probably won't be surprised to hear me say this, nor Mr. Scanlon. I wish that there had been some avenue to pursue one of your earlier thoughts, which was to match the height of the existing 4.5-story buildings that still remain on Beacon Street and actually do a much more substantial development here. So,
well, I did design the building, but at this point, my client is committed to this.
Right.
He
I
doesn't
get
want to.
that. I just, I look at this as a very thoughtful project within the parameters that exist today, but a missed opportunity when you look at the big picture.
Right. I share my colleagues' comments that I think this area really, given the need for housing, this would be an excellent opportunity. But apparently we don't have the FAR for another story here, which is unfortunate. Maybe there will be overlay zoning in the future on this area for housing, but we'll see. The only question I had, and I think you answered it, Mr. Scanlon, was I was just in looking through your plans carefully. I was just concerned that there was enough space in that mezzanine level. And I was wondering why you didn't have any dormers or any skylights or something to bring some more light in that space. But you said there's plenty of room, and any thoughts about additional window space for that loft space? I mean, I'm not opposing this. I'm just curious.
So the windows, one of the things that's a little bit unusual about this design is that the windows on the exterior walls are actually quite high. They are higher than the mezzanine floors. So
okay, got it.
So when a person is in bed or possibly even sitting at a desk, they will be able to see out. I struggled about the dormers for a different reason, and not to draw this out too long, but I happen to have charge and responsibility for a very important historic building in the Back Bay. And during COVID, we did a lot of studies about ventilation. And I would very much like to have natural ventilation at the top of the building. And in one iteration of this, I did have small upper windows that would allow for natural ventilation in the top of the building. And I didn't mind doing them on the rear. On the front, I struggled with my commitment to try to keep the second story as quiet as possible. And if I started adding dormers in the windows and complicating the facade, would that make the second story more assertive and start to I shouldn't be doing this. I'm just thinking out loud, but it was a struggle. And I think we've come to the right place.
I see. Well, I was just quite curious about that. Andre, you have your hand up.
Yep, I agree with others so far that it is a missed opportunity. I walk behind that into that muse a lot, and so I really appreciate what you're doing behind the building and how it steps down so that you're sort of protecting the light from the muse buildings. But I wish that the front were built up more. I feel like it's a missed opportunity And despite the view here, where you don't really see the second floor, when you show the elevation, and I think it would be visible from other people from across the street and from a further distance, that I understand now why the second floor windows are so tall, but it seems like an awkward proportion that doesn't relate to anything else. And given your attention to the historical context, it seems very foreign and awkward to me. So I did like Blair's suggestion of adding dormers or maybe another step. I also feel that the pitched roof at the front is very foreign and doesn't fit in anywhere with the whole street. And those are my comments.
Other,
Yeah, I have a couple of comments.
please, Mark.
Well, first of all, Mr. Scanlon, I thought it was a really terrific presentation, and I don't have very much to say about the massing or the organization of the site, but I do think that there's a couple of things that concern me about the commercial storefronts, because they look more like the residential part of the building. I mean, I can understand how you wanted to create the back of the building as part of St. Mary's Court, and I understand that, but I also understand that you have the height and the massing in the front of the commercial space, but I would assume that you might designate the entrance to the residential a little bit better with more articulation. Of course, it's just my opinion. And then you have two storefronts on either side that you might want to make a little bit more unique, with a sign ban and other kinds of things that would be typically shown with for commercial storefronts. So like it really looked like a commercial storefront. The other thing I can tell you that I've been waylaid by transformers myself many times trying to figure out where I would like to have them, and then they wind up, they have to be put someplace else because of the electrical connections and all that stuff. It's sort of like, the best plans go awry with those transformers. I would actually like to see the transformer either on the property line or closer to the building where, the secondary cabling that goes from the transformer to the building is a shorter distance. That's up to you and the mechanicals, and I realize you're not really at this point yet, but if you count on that transformer being in the middle of the parking lot, it just might not be there. It might be in a place where you lose parking spaces.
Yeah, it's actually, there is a transformer on the pole there. And the question is, do we need a larger one? And if it's larger, does it have to sit on the ground rather than being on the pole?
Yeah, I mean, do you have the cabling in the ground in St. Mary's Court, to electrify that large a building from the backside and not from Beacon Street? I think you should. I like it. I'm just saying that if you're going to hang your hat on design, you need to know where the utilities are coming from now so that it doesn't surprise you later.
The utilities are aerial cables on St. Mary's Court. All of the power comes in from the two
from St. Mary's Court.
From St. Mary's Court, yeah.
That's good. And then lastly, I just wanted to say, in terms of do we have enough depth with the commercial space? I know that it's across the front of the building, to provide for, storage and loading and so forth for the commercial. I just would like to make sure that you have some input on, how you want those spaces designed.
The bakery isn't changing, so the footprint of the bakery remains as it is. And the origin of the design was actually the request on the part of the wine press to be relieved of the rear extension where I put the accessible apartment.
Hmm.
So, so
I just think you shouldn't lose sight of the fact that we still would like to have commercial space.
Yes. Thank you. I think that's an important point that I would underline too. Thank you, Mark, for bringing it up. Linda?
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues about the missed opportunity here, but I have a question. What is behind on your neighboring building there? What's behind those little windows that you're preserving or keeping open? Do we know what's in there? I mean, they're not like regular windows. Are they on a stairwell or what do they do?
So you'll see that immediately above the back corner of the bakery, there are two large windows, one on the back and one on the side. There seems to be
No,
some.
but let me just ask about the front ones, because these are huge terraces, which really, as my fellow board members have noticed, they this huge terrace really doesn't have any precedent on Beacon Street. I mean, that I know of. Maybe I've looked in Washington Square, and so there's some of these exterior balconies, past the second floor, which in Washington Square seems appropriate. But here you're doing a lot of catapults or a lot of maneuvers to save whatever is behind that window. And are they stairwells or area? I would like to know what they are, because these are pretty minimal units as far as actual living space, and the terraces seem overly generous.
Except remember, he's at the full FAR of one.
Yeah, but can we, is there a way to shift, so that some of these ones on the back where it's very difficult to even furnish some of these second story loft areas with beds, as I'm looking at them? Does it make more sense to put stuff up front? I don't know what the structural limitations are, but to me, it's an odd building form for this street.
All right. So let me address some of these issues. One is what is behind the windows. We don't own that building. We've never been in it. We have gone on the roof and measured, and from what I can surmise by looking through the lowest ones, is that they seem, if all the floors are the same, it seems like there are kitchens in there. It looks to me like there are apartments in that building, and that those windows open into the kitchens of the apartments. That's a guess on my part, with the exception of the large window at the rear, which seems to open onto some kind of living space. But as I say, we've never been in. This is just what we can glean from walking around on the roof and, trying not to stick our noses into other people's living spaces. But they are living spaces. They do not seem to be stairways.
Also, probably are not legal windows unless they have fire shutters.
Well, that's another aspect. At the end of the day, what my client says, and he's the decision maker here, is that he doesn't want to risk his relationship with his neighbor, and he doesn't want to get involved or involve his neighbor in legal wrangling over, whether the window should be there or shouldn't be there. The windows have been there for as long as Sean has owned the building, and we believe they've been there for as long as Richard Glantz has owned 1018. So we just accept it as something we have to deal with. As far as the planning of the loft areas, the mezzanines, when I draw a building, I always draw it furnished. So I drew all of those spaces with queen size beds in them, and I did consider how they would be furnished. They look small on the screen, but each one of those lofts is at least the size of a 12 by 12 bedroom, and some of them are larger than that. If you have the drawing package, you will see the dimensions on all of them.
Yeah, often
Let-
it's not just the dimensions, it's how you're opening doors and landings and anyway, you know, so it's just a matter of, you know, how you can furnish it given the openings and the access to other closets and stuff like that. Anyway, okay. I mean, I'll accept your premise. I am very sorry that this is what the form is. That's all.
I mean, did you consider window wells like they do in Europe a lot? I've lived in one that, and I had a kitchen that looked into a window well, and it got a surprising amount of light and fresh air. And I know, yeah.
Well, I think what you can hear is that I think we're all looking at the opportunity given the housing need in this town. It's unfortunate that you don't have the FAR for another story. And I guess that's just the way it is. And I think that, at least speaking for myself, I think it's a very thoughtful plan. I know I do agree with what my colleagues said about the size of the front deck or outdoor space, which is unusual, but you know, I take your reasoning to you know, as an intelligent decision. I'd like to see a little more interest on the roof plane, like with some dormers, but you know, I leave that to my colleagues. I'm not sure we're going to insist on it. I think you might want to just consider that. Linda, you still have your hand raised. Did you have some
I'm sorry.
additional?
No,
Okay.
no, you know, but
All
I
right.
do think that if you know, if you, Andrea's suggestion about window wells, you took some of the FAR on the back and shifted it to the front, that it would be a much better plan. More, you know, not, there's so much, there's so many staircases. It's an expensive project. I mean, I guess it's kind of sexy with the loft, but to me, the usable space is limited by so many staircases.
You know, we haven't heard from Matt yet, so I don't want to sort of, you know, step in front of him. But I do think, Blair, that your suggestion of dormers for these loft areas, or at least to bring light into the loft areas, and I think Andrea agreed, I think that's a very good idea. I mean, I think building, again, I think it's a well-designed project. I think it's almost painfully modest in terms of the way it you know, the envelope is built out. And you know, I don't have an issue with those very broad decks. If there's one place there, it might be nice to have a big terrace. It's that faces south, looking over Beacon Street with all the activity there. So I don't have an issue with that. But on the other hand, when you're looking at the view that Mr. Scanlon showed us from a little further away, yes, it's nice that the second floor recedes and he maintains the first floor commercial roof line, but then that roof looks kind of boring. And so I think it would be actually complemented by adding some dormers on that.
Or I mean, this section makes me even think, why not put from the ridge over to Beacon Street, put a flat roof, open it up and make that oversized second floor glazing like almost a story and a half or 2 stories and really open up the light into that space and make it more of like an urban loft. I just feel like that the pitch at the front doesn't fit
Doesn't
in.
do anything.
Yeah, I mean, we don't see pitched roofs on our commercial buildings or in our
So-
commercial
Or
areas
on
very
Beacon
often. But Mr. Scanlon still has an issue. If he doubles the height of that floor, does he go over? Because we have to, anything over a certain height adds to the FAR,
Even
which a dormer I don't think would. But and I think it's even within the narrow opportunity that's allowed here with an FAR of 1. I think the idea of doing something to bring more light into the upper area and make that roof look a little bit less mundane is worth considering.
So,
Before you go on, Michael, can we get a comment from Matt if he has any, and that way you can have a summary comment in response.
I'll be brief. I agree with a lot of the comments that have been expressed already. I feel similarly. At the same time, we're not designing the building and this is what the client wants to build. The one thing I will ask you to double check with the code, I think even if you build adjacent to those windows the way you are, you still have to be 5 feet from those windows. Double check that, please, because there's a fire separation between buildings. And I believe it's 5 feet, and I don't know if that's with or without sprinklers, but there may be still an issue with those windows, even avoiding them architecturally. I think you still may have a code issue. Just double check that.
and we're
Is
not
that 5
trying to
feet both
design the
away or
building.
laterally?
That's what I don't recall. I know I definitely in front of the window, but I swear that you also have to consider the perimeter distance, right? You can't have your building burning within 5 feet of an opening. And I think that's measured at like 180 degrees. But again, it's been a while since I've had a condition like this, so I'm not clear on the code.
And it's not a Boston versus Brookline issue. It's a
No, it's state, Massachusetts State Building Code.
And we're not
Andre?
trying to design the building. We have design review. We're giving advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, I really appreciate Andrea's last comment there for you, Mr. Scanlon, as well as for your client. I haven't heard any opposition here to what you're doing, and I think that we've commended your thoughtfulness here. I think we just want to make sure that between now and the time you do final drawings, that you consider the comments that we've made with your client. So that he has the best possible outcome here for himself as well as for people who would be living here in the public.
Has this project gone to the Preservation Commission?
No, we don't need to.
You don't need to?
Okay.
Don't they have jurisdiction of anything that's built on Beacon Street?
They didn't find it significant, so I don't think we have to deal with it.
Right, the existing buildings, true, but
Yeah.
they do not have to approve anything that's in a National Register historic district?
Don't raise flags
Just
here.
asking,
So, Michael, did you want to respond, or you want to just
Well,
take
I
into
just-
consideration our thoughts here?
well, I just, let me say in regard to the window and fire suppression, you are right, and we have studied that. And I can't recite the correct terms for you, but there is a mechanism for extra fire suppression that addresses that issue. And CAP Fire, our fire consultant, has already looked into that.
Right.
As far as the roof, I will acknowledge that as a kind of hidden agenda, I'm trying to convince my client that roof should all be solar. And that's one of the main reasons that I didn't want to interrupt the slope of it. It faces south and it's angled very nicely for maximum solar collection. So we're still exploring that. And then the other consideration with glass and dormers and so forth is finding out what our HERS consultant says about the proportion of glass to wall that the new stretch codes specify. So there are lots of moving parts, but certainly I will take all of this into consideration.
Okay, thank you. So is anyone on the board opposed to this?
We should get neighborhood comment if there
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, thank you. And I think there is one. Thank you, Linda. I think there was one person who wanted to speak on this.
Thanks. I'm one of them.
Larry Elliott.
I think Chris was me.
Yeah, Mr. Christopher, I think was
Thanks. Hi there, it's Chris here, and I'll try to be quick. I appreciate this chance to speak, actually. I live in 19 St. Mary's Court, so I don't know if you could bring up the map of the parking lot while I'm just reflecting on a few comments back to you, because that might be helpful just to contextualize where I sit. I live in an 1890 carriage house, and I have to say, Mr. Scanlon, I'd love to welcome you to my home anytime you're around, and I'll tour you through the house, and I'd love to listen to you tell me more about the history of the neighborhood. But I had a couple of concerns that I wanted to share, and a lot of it is around the dense. I know you said it's not very dense in this spot, and I realize from Beacon Street that's true, but from St. Mary's Court, the infrastructure is really quite challenged today to support all the businesses, which you never really commented on, as well as the additional residents in this neighborhood. Just very briefly, before I launch into that, I just want to say my front windows would face directly on this property, as a matter of fact. So I'm on sort of where there's that corner piece, that sort of the corner right there. Yeah, actually, well, picture behind that black van, which is not in front of my property, a car sitting behind it, which would be my car, and another car behind that, which would be a second parking spot of mine. That is my residence. Those windows on the top floor directly face what might be a bedroom on the new property. So one of my concerns is just around the sightline and the sort of the privacy piece. And I really appreciate the thoughtfulness around light. I think that's tremendous. But I'll tell you what my bigger concern is. It's really around the safety and access to this parking lot. What wasn't mentioned today is that there's, about half the businesses are up and running right now behind this space because there's been changes. One of them is an H Mart, and to get to and so there's really just one way for pedestrians, animals, Uber Eats, the post office, the waste management, the trash disposal people to come in and out. And it is the one-way, one-lane street called St. Mary's Court. There is no sidewalk. If you're a pedestrian, that's your way in and out. Brookline Township doesn't maintain that road. If there's potholes from all those H Mart trucks, we have to figure that out ourselves, actually. So it does feel very dense today, and it's nowhere near as dense as it's going to become. I'll tell you that my car has been hit multiple times from sitting at that corner, and that utility pole you referenced, you can look at all the pock marks on it. There's a lot of them. So if this project places a transformer or some other things like further abutting towards my property, there is no way you're going to get those big H Mart trucks traveling through and not hitting my car, or not hitting the utility pole or the transformer, or those sort of cars that are sitting there. So St. Mary's Court, that was a carriage house. It was for horses. It wasn't for this many people. I would really ask, the planning board to send an engineer just to observe a half day of what goes on in this, because the pictures made it look so zen. There were no cars. There was nothing going on. If you're sitting here in the day, there is actually the waste management trucks often go at speeds that would kill somebody if they weren't watching, because they're so worried that they're going to get in and not get out. It's a one-way street. There's traffic backing up on St. Mary's Street because they can't get in and out. There's more and more businesses opening. Sometimes I miss getting my waste picked up in a week because they can't get in. I miss getting deliveries. There's a stone edifice that's in front of my building. It's been knocked over by trucks. So I just want to raise these concerns because it's part of the quality of life of the neighborhood. And I heard this planning board all say that this is not dense and it needs more housing. But I have to say St. Mary's Court wasn't built for this kind of infrastructure. And it's kind of an accident waiting to happen. Actually, the only exit, again, along that street really is one that it has many blind spots. And again, there's many, many trucks flying in and out of here. So I just one day when I need to repair my roof, where do I put, how do I do that actually? If there's a transformer stuck in front of my building, behind my building, it was just approved by you guys, a big Ivy Street construction that put another building behind there. It's there's no one I don't have a foot of space behind my building. If I have to do any work on it, it has to go in front, and there's really diminishing space if this project takes up more of that. So I just want to raise these concerns. I'm really excited by the thought that's gone into this, but as someone who lives there, I'm worried about the safety of people and the kind of quality of life sort of being in St. Mary's Court.
Thank you. Michael, could you put up your plan that shows the parking and the
Sure.
transformer?
But before I do that, let me point out, if you look at this aerial view at the back of, in the parking area behind the building, you see that there is a gray car right beside the telephone pole. That's the area where the transformer would be. It would be on our side of the telephone pole.
No, I understand that. I was just, the point I just wanted to, there's just that one little pinch point where your property goes to an angle. Right, go back, there you go. So I'm just wondering, it seems to me that in looking at the larger neighborhood context, as your sheet is oriented, that planter that's at the bottom left corner,
Yeah.
I know that's all your property. I'm just wondering whether, rather than going all the way to that point, whether in the interests of access along the lane here, or that you make that go more perpendicular to the property line, giving up a little bit of space for the common passage for everyone, including trucks and your deliveries and waste management and so forth. Just a suggestion here.
Yeah,
No,
we're fine with that. I was the one trying to push to get some green back there.
Yeah,
But we'll have to put some protection
Yeah.
for the vehicle there.
Wait.
But
Wait.
There's another
Sure.
telephone
You-
pole at the corner
if
there,
you-
isn't there?
If you look at that green triangle,
there's a telephone.
and you see on the extreme left-hand side at the bottom, there's a black dot.
Yep, that's the telephone pole.
That's the telephone pole.
Right. So maybe your planter goes inboard of that telephone pole, and the telephone pole will protect your planter from the trucks.
Well,
But I think it's a small gesture, but in looking at the larger context, it seemed to me that this point on the property does create a little bit of a constraint, and I certainly wouldn't expect you to go more than the telephone pole is.
I've been texting with my client, Mr. Chair, and he's fine working with that. Again, he's
Okay.
owned this property for 40
Yeah,
years. He has
that's
really
fine. Good.
Understanding of how this works in
Yeah.
the back there.
All right. So we have
Actually, can I just point
another
out, it's
we have
actually the
another
other-
po-
It's actually the other one that's the biggest. I mean, actually, you didn't. I don't know if you mentioned the one in the middle. Except that is the one that keeps getting hit. The one where the transformer is actually. That is where the space is the tightest because the trucks are trying to turn at that point, and so the abutting from there would be even the bigger
see.
issue, not the one at
I
the
see.
bottom.
I see. All right. Well, that's a very good point. I think that Mr. Scanlon can and the attorney and owner should think about this. Mr. Elliott, you have your hand raised.
Are you muted, Mr. Elliott?
And please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Yes, thanks. I was muted. Thank you. My name is Larry Elliott. I'm a resident at 1038 Beacon Street. I've lived here since about 1980 with my wife. And I have 6 concerns that I'll go through hopefully slowly enough that you can jot down what they are and then respond to them all at the end. First, you seem to have ignored the fact that 1038 Beacon Street is a residential building. We're to the west of this location, but we're in the same block and it's been here. My wife moved in 1979. It is a commercial block and there's a lot, as Chris mentioned, there's a lot of noise in back on St. Mary's Court. There's a lot of deliveries and dumpsters being emptied and so forth. And many of the trucks and dumpster emptying trucks back into the court the entire way because they have difficulty turning around. So we get a lot of beeping and noise. So one impact for our building would be noise from the construction. That hasn't been mentioned at all. Second, those wires that run in from St. Mary's Street carry our cable TV and internet connections for some of us. So we'd have to make sure those wires aren't interrupted during construction. My third point is that I'm concerned that, as you see on the screen, there's not a lot of space for loading and unloading for the commercial units that will be in this building. St. Mary's Court is very small. If delivery trucks are not able to pull fully into that space and need to block the court, that would block the court for the rest of us and for emergency vehicle access. So there's got to be sufficient space for a significantly large truck to pull in there and unload. And if you have multiple retail units that have deliveries at the same time during the day, then there will be insufficient space for the deliveries to deliver their their wares to the commercial units. My fourth concern is that all the water runoff from the building is going to be diverted onto the St. Mary's Court back area, and it's going to go into some kind of Cultex system, which supposedly stores the water for a period of time until the ground is able to absorb it. There's about a 6-inch bump that was added to the entrance of St. Mary's Court when they redid St. Mary's Street. So, and all of the drains in St. Mary's Court, I believe, are dry wells. They're not connected to the sewer system. And if all the water runoff from this building gets diverted into St. Mary's Court, I'm concerned that it may flood the court. And you may want to consider that in the placement of your transformer. Currently, we have some flooding that occurs like today during very heavy rains where it takes a couple of hours for it to drain off at the end of St. Mary's Court. And you've got to drive through about 4 to 5 inches of water to get in now. I'm not sure, and my fifth point is the trash bins and recycling bins that are in the back of the building. We have 3 active commercial units in our building that generate a lot of trash. We would not be able to store that trash even with daily pickups if we used bins of the type that you're proposing. We have a big 2 big dumpsters out back, one for trash and one for recycling. I'm not sure that sufficient thought has been put into the volume of trash and recycling that might be generated by your retail units. And the last is the impact on Japonese Bakery, which was closed for a couple of years. We finally got it reopened. They totally redid their space. And I would assume that they would have to move out during this construction, which might be, for example, a year, and then move back in if they survive as a business. And I'm wondering whether this business will survive or whether we'll lose it as a result of this construction.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think it brought up several very important issues in terms of commercial access and parking. And I think I'd like to, I think this will need to have a construction management plan. Typically, that's the case. And I think the issue of commercial parking and offloading delivery needs to be incorporated in this plan. So we'll be sure to add that to the list of conditions. Mr. Warren, you have your hand raised.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for holding this hearing. Say hello to my neighbors. I'm Paul Warren. I'm a member of the Select Board. I'm also the chair of the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. And I happen to live at the extreme west end of St. Mary's Court. I'm the last residential building on St. Mary's Court. So all of the issues that were just raised about the capacity, it really is very precarious back there. You know, there are very large trucks. The dump trucks, I think Larry mentioned, back up to the 2 dumpsters that service his building. And, you know, there's a lot of commercial activity. So this, I don't know if it's a construction management plan, Blair, but it certainly is a capacity type of review. And it really, just reiterating those comments, it is very serious. And it wasn't clear to me how, was there commercial access to the building from the back, or was it because they're getting rid of the back of the wine press, I think, and turning that into residential? I'm just curious, is there going to be access to the building commercially from the back for deliveries, or deliveries take place from Beacon Street?
Mr. Allen, do you know the answer to that?
I think Michael does.
Yeah, there is loading door. In this image that we're looking at, it would be along the top of the parking lot into the square of area where there are exit areas from the bakery and from the retail space.
In the back.
Yeah.
Okay, I just something for you to consider. I have spoken to the town administrator about this, and actually Attorney Allen as well, because he represented Dan Yu when he built the food court, which we happen to love. There is a lot of deliveries and coordination. You got people dropping off large deliveries. You got trash being picked up. You've got, as Christopher had mentioned, you've got deliveries and Ubers. There's a lot of complexity back there, and I think Christopher alluded to the entrance and exit is actually very narrow. It's probably maybe 10 feet wide, maybe. And it's 4-story brick buildings that go right up to the sidewalk. So there's actually no visibility to anything happening back in there. I've always asked for, I wish there would be some sort of blinking light or alerts so that people that are walking on the sidewalk know that someone is going to be exiting that St. Mary's Court. It is pretty dangerous. But that's enough about transportation. Just a couple of other points. First, Mrs. Scanlon, I really appreciated your sensitivity to the historic environment, sensitivity to light. Really, you did a remarkable job with your presentation. I want to concur with other members of the planning board. This really is a missed opportunity. I wish we could wait a little bit on this until St. Mary's can be upzoned, because really what should be there is a 4 or 5 story building that's in keeping with what's next door, or down similar to what's at that was just where the Elephant Walk was redeveloped. It really is, just seems like a missed opportunity, but I do understand that the owner wants to get moving. My last comment is regarding the commercial space. And I think those windows are true renderings of what you plan on doing. And I think it might have been mentioned earlier. It doesn't look like a commercial, there's a demarcation or a clear indication that it's commercial space. Right now, the wine press has these very large windows you can see in. The same with Japanese, that you can see into the commercial space, and it's inviting. And I didn't really get that sense from the rendering. So it would be great if there could be something a little bit more commercial oriented. And if, Attorney Allen, if the owner could find a way to maybe wait just a little bit longer until St. Mary's could be, properly upzoned to what should be there, housing and commercial mixed-use development along our transit-oriented corridors, it is the #1 priority, a major priority of the comprehensive plan. So
Yeah, but I've explained to my client how fast things move here in Brookline.
I know. And for the record,
I was talking about upzoning St. Mary's Street 20-something
yeah,
years ago.
a couple of years ago, I asked for the study to get started from the planning, and they didn't have the resources. But again, we talked about this, Bobby. It is a bit of a missed opportunity.
Yeah,
but
of course. We all agree.
I'm going to go. I really appreciate the design work. You did a remarkable job and very sensitive to the surrounding areas, and you have a lot of constraints. So
and we will be focusing more on the commercial space. We were kind of just making sure we got the design and the housing and the height and all that correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
I forget who made the comment, Paul, but the idea of a little further distinguishing between the residential entrance and the commercial, I think, would be very much addressing your point.
Yep.
To make more legible
Yeah.
The two different uses.
And Larry did mention, the Japanese. It is such a beloved, unique place. I don't know how that transition is going to work. Takeo's mentioned to me, you might have to move next door, and they may have to move back. But it would be really, really beneficial for the area to be able to retain that very unique establishment.
We are organizing our building to accommodate them. That's
Okay.
that's how much my client cares for them.
He makes the best croissant, I think, in the area. So
Wouldn't want you to lose
I
your
want to
croissant.
lose that. Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Any further comments from members of the board or public?
Yeah, I'd like to say one thing. I think this project has the votes to go ahead. I think I'm going to abstain. I think there's ways that the building could be shifted to the front toward Beacon Street to give a little more to the St. Mary's Court is, as we've heard, very congested, and to give away some of the FAR that you've got on the rear of the property line that's not on the south, and give more to servicing this building, the commercial and the residential, would make for a much better project. So that's my feeling.
I agree with Linda, and I'm gonna go beyond the abstain and vote no.
Well, I think what I'd like to do is add to the conditions to really address what Linda has said about that we're conditioning our approval for further review of access and for commercial, as well as access along St. Mary's Court for the common good if we do approve it. And I also think that we've made some very strong pitches for some redesign So I'm hoping that the architect and the ownership can consider, particularly, I think, Linda, your comment is very well placed. Any other comments? Do we have the?
Yeah, so are we leaning towards continuing this? I mean, I do think the idea of doing something with those low slope roofs to include dormers, which would not, as near as I can tell, add anything to the floor area.
Well, I was thinking, Steve, since we have design review, I'd like to suggest to all of you that we approve this contingent upon maybe some final plans coming back for our comment, so that at least the owner knows that he has a project here and can proceed with the other needed approvals and so forth. Does that sound reasonable to you, Mr. Allen?
I have no issue with that, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
And then we should make sure that we outline some of our concerns. If we're going to send this
Yes.
to the zoning board and ask it to come back for final design review. Okay, I think, by the way, one way perhaps of distinguishing the residential entry more from the commercial entries, I know there will be signage, it is still that huge sign ban. Maybe, I mean, you still have this 20-foot, privately owned setback here. Maybe there should be some sort of canopy over the residential entry, a projecting cover.
Interesting.
Help distinguish it from the commercial.
All right, so if Becca could put up the conditions, I'd like my colleagues to help me add some concerns that we have, make a list of for the final design to come back to us.
Just Blair, while she's doing that, if I can just say,
Please.
one of the things that I know that Michael talked about it, but we're walking a fine line here. We're trying to maximize the FAR, maximize the number of units, keep our neighbor happy.
Right,
on
I
the side,
appreciate
not
that.
blocking windows. I just want to make sure you understand all that.
I
not
think
as
we do.
easy. Okay, there's a
I
puzzle.
think we do. I think there is a puzzle here, and I think that I think you mostly heard positive comments
Absolutely.
with comment.
And
So
the
I
commercial
don't-
stuff is fair and easy.
Yep.
Shifting weight, shifting mass to the front gets a little more difficult.
All right. All right, can you, so I'm going to make a motion to approve the site plan by Mark Violette.
There'll be to recommend approval.
Okay, recommend approval, the site plan by Mark Violette, dated April 17, 2025, with architectural plans by Philip A. Christakos, dated February 24, 2025. Subject to the following conditions. I'm going to first add that that we're approving this, if we're approving this subject to final design review. And the concerns that we
By the
had
planning board.
by the planning board, and the concerns that we had are the parking and access for commercial deliveries. Further consideration of the location of the trash and the transformer, and to provide as much reasonable access along the court as possible. To reconsider.
They maintain as much access.
Maintain, thank you, as much access. To consider the movement of the forward wall of the facade closer to Beacon Street. That word is consider, as well as some dormers, possible dormers, and that's all in the interest of trying to move some of the mass of the building towards Beacon Street and away from the court. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall electronically submit final floor plans and elevations stamped and signed by a registered architect, and a final site plan stamped and signed by a registered engineer or land surveyor to the Director for Regulatory Planning for review and approval. 2, in accordance with section 4.08 of the zoning bylaw. Oops.
Yeah, this is the affordable housing conditions. So I
Right.
think they're just the typical conditions we have,
Yes,
where
right.
the cash payment will be made, and if the
We're fine
attorney
with all
agrees,
that.
we can
Okay, right.
keep it.
Okay. Okay, and then
3.
this would be 3. actually it's 4 because I had the first condition was that final design plans come back to the planning board for approval. So 4, prior to the issuance of building permit, the applicant shall electronically submit a landscape plan subject to the approval of the Director for Regulatory Planning. The counterbalancing amenities must be executed in accordance with the approved plan. 5.
And do you want to add 5 as the construction management plan before the final condition?
Yes, 5 with that, a construction management plan shall be prepared for approval by the building department or building commissioner, I should say. 6, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall electronically submit to the building commissioner for review and approval a construction management plan, the site plan, floor plans, and elevations displaying the approval stamp of the Assistant Director for Regulatory Planning. B, evidence that the Board of Appeals decision has been obtained from the town clerk's office by the applicant or the representative and recorded at the Registry of Deeds. One last thing, Becca, is this going to require a rodent control plan? Because I know a number of these urban reconstructions too.
That's usually required when there's a significant excavation. So I'm not sure if there will be significant excavation at the site. Since I think they're keeping the ground floor building.
Okay.
So that's why staff didn't propose that condition. But if the planning board believes it's relevant, it can be added.
I think that would be the health department or maybe the building commissioner would have that concern. So we'll leave it to their discretion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. Paul Warren still has his hand. Oh, no, he took it down. Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, so all in favor?
He has it up again.
Oh, Mr. Warren?
I'm sorry. Thank you, Steve, for recognizing me. You know, this is rat heaven out here on St. Mary's Court. Just given the number of food establishments, H Mart, it would, even though they're not going to be doing significant excavation, there's got to be a lot of vibration as they're doing the work, and that's actually what makes rodents move. It would be so fabulous if you could include
we will.
mitigation plan, including in the construction plan.
Okay, let's add that condition.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second it.
Stephen seconds it. All in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Mark?
No.
Matt?
Aye.
Andrea?
No.
Linda?
No.
I'm going to vote yes. Do we have have I gotten everyone?
Yes, I believe it's tied. So the motion did not pass. I think I have Mark, Linda, and Andrea voting no.
I would like the project to come back to the board because I think that when we approve something like this, we lose the control and pressure to, get changes to the design.
So with that in mind, Mr. Allen, would you would you favor a continuance here and have us just disregard this vote?
Yeah, I will. I just want to say how disappointing it is that you all say it's a missed opportunity and then it makes no sense to me. And I know you all want to be the arbiter of everybody's taste, but 3 years the architect worked on this project and you've got spent 15 minutes and you want to redesign the whole thing. I know that's your job, but I think you have to respect the amount of time and energy that went into it and understand that we didn't put it back there like frivolously, all the back there. And I know Blair, but everybody else can talk, but I can't say and push back at all. And
fine.
For housing, this is what it takes, right? This is what it takes.
Yep,
to get
I know.
housing.
No,
And it takes changes, right? There's got to be changes. We can't do a flat roof. We can't add more FAR. We can't get a variance. We just can't.
I agree.
Mr. Allen, it seems to me this project would have really been helped by just have a preliminary review. This is the first time it's appearing, right? 3 years. You could have done it the first year, the first month, the second year. Just a preliminary. Doesn't take much. Just to give an idea. All right? It's free. We're not paid here. Okay?
So
thank you.
So it sounds like we're going to continue this rather than turn it down.
I think
I'll
that's the
work with
right
that.
thing to do.
Yeah, continue with, absolutely.
All right, well, I want to underline my support for this. Yeah, I think that it's a step in the right direction, even if it isn't two steps in the right direction because of zoning. That really is our fault, not the owners and not the architects. Our fault being the towns, that is. Mr. Scanlon, thank you very much for all your effort. I think it was very thoughtful, and I don't want this to be seen as a rebuke in any way of your professional ability.
No, not at all. And the suggestions you've made are very, very easily accommodated.
All right, well, hopefully we can come back with this very soon because I appreciate Bob's comment about the amount of time that's gone into this and the need to move forward.
Thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you. I think we have one more case, don't we, or am I wrong?
Yes, we do have one more case. It's 370 Washington.
Speaking
That's
of
right.
3 years,
I'm talking about 3 years. Mr. Burke, you must be around here someplace, right?
Yes, I am. Thank you very
I
much.
see.
Yes, so
all
this is
right.
here for final design review. The planning board actually recommended approval on this to the ZBA on May 29th, but since the ZBA date, it's still going to be next week, and we did have an opening tonight, so we are trying to help the applicant move as fast as we can here, considering the time that have already been put in this project. So they came back earlier before going to the ZBA for final design review. So just hand it over to the team to present the changes they have made based on the planning board's recommendation during the last meeting.
yeah, great. Thanks, Becca, and thanks for putting us in here before the ZBA meeting. I think it's very helpful. The feedback was great that we got last time. Again, Bob Allen, 300 Washington Street in Brookline Village, here representing the owner of 370 Washington Street. Have Tim Burke here, the architect. Basically, I'll turn it over to Tim. There were about 6 or 7 things that the board brought up, and Tim was able to address them all. And hopefully, you're pleased with the result. So, Tim, introduce yourself and run with it.
Great. Thank you very much, Bob. Yes, my name is Timothy Burke. I'm the architect for the project. I have a business address of 142 Berkeley Street in Boston. I'll share my screen to show the updated drawings. This is the view from Washington Street. There's the church and the former bank building to our left and the funeral home to our right. In terms of the things we talked about last time, there was some discussion about the orientation of the addition, and I'm a fan of keeping it orthogonal to the property lines as we've shown it. The original house here in the front on Washington is kind of cockeyed to the street. We did push the building back. We increased this rear yard setback, one for the easement for the neighbor to come around the back, and also to just reduce the mass somewhat. In terms of, I think I'll jump to the elevations because that was where it kind of shows all the different things that we talked about last time. This is the Washington Street elevation. There was some discussion about the roof shingles, and we are going to make an effort to try to preserve those fish scale type slate shingles that are there now. We won't know for sure until we get into seeing what the condition of them, what kind of condition they're in once we start the work. The rear elevation and all the parts of the new addition, the proposed addition, we changed the windows to be more of a traditional 2/2 double hung type window, which was one of the comments. This is the rear elevation. I've pushed the mechanical equipment back into the middle of the roof and have added a little screening around it. Earlier on, we had reduced the roof decks quite a bit. This is probably the elevation most people will see along Goodwin Place. The garage is still where we had shown it, but we have again changed the fenestration dramatically to be more in keeping lining up windows and using the more traditional windows than we had previously shown. This is the smaller roof deck that you see up here, and then this is mechanical equipment that's been pushed into the middle of the roof. So there shouldn't really be much visibility, if any, of that equipment from the ground. And there'd also be a little screening fence at the trash area here at the back. The elevation towards the funeral home, again, had the same types of changes. We had pushed this third floor back. The neighbor was a little concerned about the amount of sunlight coming into his parking lot, especially in winter time. And then we changed these windows in the stairway, which I think make a nice transition between the original house and the proposed addition. And then to just sort of, it's always helpful to see a rendering. So this is the view from Goodwin Place here at the bottom of the screen and at the top as well. And again, as I mentioned, you really can't see any of the mechanical equipment and just a little bit of the roof deck railing.
Tim, just real quick, that central entry between the existing building and the proposed, how far is that step back from the existing building? Is that about 2 feet or 3 feet?
Yes, it's 3 feet back from the face, this face here. Yeah.
Okay, and then the new building is 4 feet from the porch, a little bit further out, or is?
Yes, it comes out another 2 feet from the porch. Yes.
So it's 5 feet. Okay, thank you. That explains my.
And we added this little roof here to kind of pick up some of the themes of the original house. So we're very happy with it. We hope the planning board agrees and and the ZBA as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if you need to see the floor plans, I have those as well.
Comments, Andre, you have your hand raised.
Yep, I really like how what you did with the roof deck. I really appreciate that. I did have a question about the extended cornices at the second floor and third floor and what your thinking was behind that.
It was we don't have a mansard roof like the original house, but we did want to pick up that datum plane to kind of help tie it all together, just as I've done with those roofs at the first floor level. I think it adds a nice change to the facade, sets off the top, and sort of helps to reduce the overall height of it visually.
I was just wondering if you need both.
I guess, that's something I can certainly look at. There is not one here because it just seemed to be, I didn't want to compete with the existing corbels and the overhang there. So this could be minimized, but I think it still needs some type of break, so it's not an abrupt change in materials.
Otherwise, I appreciate all the changes you've made. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Other members, Steve?
I agree. I mean, I think these second and third floor cornices on the new construction work, I think especially it may have seemed like an obvious choice now that it's there, but going back to windows more similar to the historic house, 2/2, and especially with some more evidence of trim around them. I don't think anybody's going to mistake the new construction for a more historic structure, but I think it certainly feels more coherent, maintaining the same kind of scale of openings and type of window. And talk about going back, taking 3 years to do a project. I remember when we were hearing that there was no way that the original mansard building was not going to be torn down, and we were looking at maybe an off-site parking lot or a bagel shop, and I think it may have taken a while to get to this point, but I think this is the right use for this site. I'm very glad to see it finally coming together.
I totally agree. I'm very glad to see this happening. Other members of the board?
I'm good to go.
Okay. So I'm going to open up the public comment here. I know we've had a lot of public comment. I hope we have some positive ones tonight. Do I see
John
any hands?
Bassett?
Did you raise your hand, Mr. Bassett?
I don't think so, but we did receive a letter from John Bassett with a few concerns, and another neighbor too. Yes, Mr. Bassett?
Thank you very much for having me, letting me speak. I'm John Bassett. We live at 26 Searle Avenue, and we abut this property. Yes, it's much better. It's a better use. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody, anyway, there are improvements. When I saw the elevations that I have online, the cladding for the addition just shows horizontal lines indicating clapboards. I liked that. I thought that it looked consistent with the clapboards on the existing building. I see that's not what's intended. I think it would be perhaps better if the cladding on the addition were mostly the same as what's on the old building. I don't see the reason for the change. Nobody, as somebody just remarked, everybody will read this as an old building with an addition. There's no mistaking that, but I think a consistency of cladding for most of it would be an improvement. On the scallop shingles, the shingles will be fine. What will be questionable is the sheathing below them, and it's very likely that this house is, I think, from the 1870s. It's very likely that some of the sheathing will be in bad shape. I would like to hear a commitment that in the event the sheathing needs to be replaced, scallop shingles will be replaced, even if new ones need to be got. In the process of replacing the shingles, you've got to take off the existing, replacing the sheathing. You've got to remove the shingles. Some of them will be broken, won't be reusable. Maybe most of them. Still, I would like a commitment to replace the scallop shingles on the mansard roof of the existing house.
That would be our plan. We would have to strip them off and then repair. The sheathing there'll be some damage, no doubt. And then we would cover it in a waterproofing membrane and then reinstall the shingles. That's our plan.
That's good. Thank you. The last comment is about the rear setback. What is the requirement L/10? Is there, I forgot to look it up. What's the required rear setback in a G1 district?
It's a formula.
10 feet plus the length divided by 10.
Yeah.
The length of that wall. Yes.
So this is not complying with that.
That is correct.
Well,
We're asking for relief on that. Yes.
okay. I would not be in favor of relief on that. We have an easement. I know that you're not a court, you're not in the business of enforcing easements, but we do have an easement. I've agreed to move it back as far south as possible so that this can go forward, but we would like to have a 4-foot way to pass during construction. The minimum dimension that I read from the drawings is 11, it looks like 11.4 feet. Maybe it's 11 feet 4 inches. In any case, it's not, I don't think it's enough to have a 4-foot easement, to have a fence, and then have enough space for construction machinery to get back there. I think the south wall needs to go north a bit, and probably you should be complying with the rear yard setback. I think that's all I've got. And again, I'm happy to see the improvements, and I would like to see the more continuity of the cladding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caitlin Clark.
Hi, thank you very much. I represent the adjacent property I shouldn't say represent, I connected with the church 366 Washington Street. I guess my comments, I won't draw it out, would very much go along with what Mr. Bassett has just said, particularly about the old scallops roof slates. And also I did have a question about the siding, the material of the, what's now clapboards on the original building. Is it any way possible to get something that would be pretty similar or even same, you know, clapboards, or was that not going to happen?
We could match what's called the exposure is, how much you see of each clapboard. And so the exposure varies. This one, the existing house has a fairly tight exposure. I want to remember it's between 4 and 5 inches. So yeah, we could certainly match that. The new siding would most likely be more of a cement product like Hardy Plank.
I would recommend not doing that. I think it helps to distinguish between the existing and new.
We were planning a wider exposure.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you were planning on clapboards, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Hardy Plank.
Yeah, right. I would like to get comments from the architects. It strikes me that distinguishing between the new and the old, and if you carry clapboards, that they could have a wider exposure. But I was more curious about what Matt and Andrea and Linda and Stephen or Mark think about whether they should be matching the width of the clapboards or whether they can, whether a more generous width is more appropriate. Your thoughts? Andrea?
Well, I had already said that I think the way Tim has shown it is appropriate, which is a wider exposure.
I think it's a subtle change that works. Yes.
Now, plus there's the color change, and Tim, you are planning on keeping the exposure, the narrow exposure in the existing structure?
Yes, we are. Yeah, I like to
I think that's
almost treat that like a historic renovation.
Totally appropriate approach. Certainly substituting cementitious siding for clapboard is the only way to do that these days.
Matt, are you in agreement? Okay,
I agree
Mark?
with Steve. Yeah, I agree with Steve. Yeah.
I have a strong opinion on the exposure dimension, and I agree. Once it's painted, it'll look exactly like cedar clapboard. It just won't. The paint won't ever peel.
Okay.
Well, not never, but I think the finish
got a
on Hardy
16-year
Plank is
warranty. It's a pretty good head
15
start.
years.
Do we have any further public comments before I think we pick up this issue of the easement that Mr. Bassett brought up? Any further public comment?
No, I don't hear any.
Do we have
Kim,
a
could you-
plan that shows that?
Yeah,
easement?
I was going to just ask for that. Thanks, Mark.
There's not an easement. There's a requirement for us to provide a right of way from that area to Washington Street.
Can you explain which area that is now? Is it to the right of the building or the left? Excuse me, or the left of the building?
It's not a set. It's not a set. It involves a court case that goes back that I wasn't involved with, but it requires, John's got right behind us, there's a gate, a fence there. And it requires us to provide him access of at least 4 feet to get from there to Washington Street. And John, you could stop me if I'm incorrect, but that's the way I read the court case. So,
And that's along Goodwin Place. Is that correct? That he goes across the back?
it's
to
right
Goodwin
along the
Place?
back of his property.
Got it. Okay,
4
that's
feet
what I
on-
thought.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
And listen, John has Kenny Goldstein, and Kenny Goldstein and I are talking about it. And
So there's right now
we know we're required to do it.
So there's 10 right now. The back of the building is 10 feet off the property line, as I read the plan.
I think it's 11, is it?
Well, it's 11 at one point and 9.
Well, that's to the roof.
That's to the roof. It's 12.3 feet on the Goodwin Place side.
And on the other side, it looks like it'd
be 11.1 feet.
Okay, so that's in terms of equipment operation, which he brought up. It would seem to me that when you're digging the foundation or something else, you'll be able to operate without without going in this area. Is that correct? Or you see that they'd be, I mean, on occasion having some equipment here in that area between the back of the building and the property line planned south?
We'll be able to do it by working, from the Washington Street side. We can do everything, mostly all the excavation from that side. So I don't see any reason why we can't keep a 4-foot, we'll put up a fence and be able to keep that passageway clear.
I see. Okay.
And then later we would probably put staging on top of that, create like a tunnel, and then we can work with lifts above.
Got it. Okay. All right. So we have final design review. Members of the board, are we good with this?
I'm good with it.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion then to record the members of the planning board's approval or disapproval of the plans as presented. All in favor, Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. It's been a long road to get here from bagel shop to this nice addition. So I really appreciate all the effort, not only in the designer, but especially from ownership, that your forbearance that led us to this point. I think, I'm sure there may be some abutters that are not perfectly happy with this, but I think it's vastly better than what we've seen in the past. So I want to just offer thanks for the hard work that's been put into this.
Yeah, thank you to the planning board for helping us get through it.
Yes,
Okay.
indeed. Yep.
All right. Very good.
Thank you all. Have
all
a good
right.
night.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Okay, that was a good long meeting, and I hopefully they can come back on that Beacon Street project shortly without us unduly delaying their efforts.
All right. Good night,
Oh,
everyone,
okay.
and see you all next week in our morning
Wednesday.
meeting
Right.
Wednesday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Good
Good
night,
night.
everyone.
Thanks
Good night.
everyone for your comments. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.